So good afternoon. We wish, of course, as always, that we could be with you in person, but we are just so happy to be with you at all. And thank you for taking the time to be here. This workshop is for you, so please, as you have questions, feel free to let us know that in the chat. We'll try to remember to ask again at the end of the presentation if there are questions. We do have a bit.ly. You can see there that we have it listed. We have put lots of resources in there for you, and so that you don't have to worry about trying to write down everything. You will have access to everything that we talk about, and then a lot of extra stuff too that you might want to use, or please always feel free to share. I think Larry's clicking on that. Larry's driving for me today. We're helping each other out. It's been a day for technical difficulties supreme. So this is our resources page that we've put together for you. You can see that we have the SEL related PBS Learning Media resources, and I'll be briefly telling you what PBS Learning Media is, just for those who might not know. If you have any questions about this presentation or PBS Learning Media, I will say that Learning Media is extremely easy to use. But you do have us, KET Education Consultants, as a resource. We're here to help you. We love to help you and students. And so you'll have a way to contact us is at the bottom of the page. You can see there's a link that will take you to the website where you can reach out. You can find who your particular consultant is based on where your school is located. But really, if you have my email handy or you have Larry's, we're all happy to help everybody. So you can see, Larry, thank you. That's awesome. There's also the green box there that says book a consultant. Oh, it's okay. Up at the top. That's a pretty new feature for us. If you want to book like a short conversation or a longer consult with us, you can click on that book here link and then pick your consultant, and we will love to meet with you virtually. Hopefully, we can also plan to meet in person if you want to do that too. But as you know, we all have to be flexible right now. So, okay, Larry, thank you. Can you go back to the sheet that we were just looking at for a second?
Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay. I want to make sure. Seems like there was one other thing I wanted to point out to everybody. Oh, if you can see the graphic, it's a PDF. It's a link. The PDF image is a link. And you will be seeing that in our slides presentation today. So we don't really need to go look at it right now. I just want you to be aware that slide has lots of SEL related resources, not only K through 12 or 4 through 12, but also a few that would be in early childhood level too. We wanted to make this as helpful to you as we could. And then if you want to share it out, you can do that. The PDF has active links that will take people straight to the resources. So I just want you to know that that is there. You can sign up for our free KET newsletter, and we have a PBS Learning Media collections that we add to and adjust from time to time. But our collections document is resources in all subject areas, math, English, and so forth, including some PD that you can access. We also give you a link to the resource you can see here. And we tell you the suggested grade levels for that particular resource. And anybody can go in here, even if they don't have a PBS Learning Media account, they can still be taken to these resources. And so we try to go in and add as we have new resources. So we thought, and I think many of you have already done this part, if you would, make sure you put your name and email address in the chat box. We will be emailing you, of course, the resources if we need to do that. Also, we would like you to, if you don't mind, consider completing one of the following sentences. and entering it into the chat box, just one. So this is sort of a short SEL activity. This one would help to build relationships. So if you did this one with your students, I guarantee you, you're gonna kind of break the ice and get students talking to one another. I did this when I was teaching at the University of Cincinnati. I didn't know it was called SEL. I was just trying to figure out as a young teaching assistant how to get people, working together in a writing classroom. So answer, I might be the only person in this group who, or I might be the only person in this group who has never, or I might be the only person in this group who likes or who doesn't like. Of course, if you're working with students, you always want to say, assume that your parents or grandmother or other caregiver is in the room too, and keep it PG and polite. Mine would be, I might be the only person in this group who loves, I would even go so far to say, loves worms. Worms. Yeah. What about you, Larry?
Oh, actually, I love worms too. So you're
Oh,
not the only one.
awesome. Okay,
Yeah.
Larry, have you written a poem about worms?
I don't think I have. I've written poems
Okay.
about lots of things, but I don't think I've written one about worms.
Oh my good. Oh, so I have a love poem to
Oh,
worms. And
okay.
look
Well,
here, look at
you might be a
this.
little.
We're getting some wonderful responses I can see
Oh, yeah.
slipping past me. Somebody has triplets. Oh my God. And they're
Wow.
in their 20s. So you
Yeah.
survived that. That's amazing. Someone's a beekeeper. Darlene is a beekeeper. Someone has 2 Siberian Huskies. So I also love bees and dogs. So we have those things in common. Awesome. I love those. So when I did this at University of Cincinnati, I told Larry this earlier, one student that I remember, and this has been 20 years probably, actually a little more than 20 years. This student, I can see his face. I cannot recall the young man's name, but I can see him and I remember things about him. He was the only person in the group, in the class, who could do a great impersonation of the chef character from the Muppets. You remember the chef character?
The Swedish Chef.
The
Yeah.
Swedish chef who could never, like nobody can really understand what he's saying. And he just completely nailed it. And of course, once he said it, everybody said, do it, do it, do it. And he was a really shy kind of guy, but he did it. And we all just, I felt like we kind of, we felt closer together after that. And we could work together better. And let's see, Larry says, I may be the only one who is one of 4 children. All of us are born on the same day. I did not know that about you, Larry, but in different years. That is so cool. Awesome.
Yeah, it's an oddity.
But one thing about this activity is how easy it is and how simple it is. But if this sort of activity is incorporated into classes and is done so consistently as a student moves through their school career, it really can tap into the SEL strategies that we're going to be talking about and the reason why we should try to do that. Beatrice says, I wish she lived in the 50s. Sometimes I feel like I was either born too soon or too late. I'm not sure which, but okay. Okay. So if we could, I guess we can move on.
Okay.
I wish we could read everybody. That what we
All right.
did in my class, we would have gone around and everybody would have completed it. So our title is SEL K through 12, but I've added and beyond. What, why, and how. The beyond is simply to refer to the fact that, of course, all of us could benefit from some of the activities, strategies, focus that these resources and experts suggest are beneficial. Also, it is to remind us that these things aren't just for school kids. They are for the people who are becoming adults as they go through our classrooms, right, each year, and the adults that they will eventually become, and how they will move and exist and experience the world. So I put the and beyond there for that reason.
And I think that's very important because, as you said, what teaching these skills is not to just have them be children who are maybe a little better disciplined or better adjusted in some ways, but that they will become adults who know how to carry on relationships appropriately and communicate appropriately and all those kinds of things. So it's extremely important.
And some of the resources that you're going to see today, or that you may go back and look at later when you get our list of other resources, is how that is so true, right? How it's important for adults, for teachers as well. So many of the resources, or most of the resources actually, that we are showing you come from our PBS Learning Media. And hopefully many of you know about it because you've heard us talk about it. We've come to talk to you, or colleagues have shared information with you. Just the bare bones though, so if you don't know, it's an online repository. It has thousands of multimedia resources. So all the subject areas are covered, all the academic subject areas are covered, as well as things like SEL, anti-bullying, social emotional learning, but also PD. There's teacher PD that you can access at your convenience and complete. All of these resources are aligned to the state and national educational standards. They come from people like us, like at KET, but also from many other places too. NASA, PBS, just being a couple. The set of resources also have, not all, but many have support materials for teachers or caregivers, educators of all kinds, right? That they can use wherever learning takes place. So if it's in the classroom, or if it's going on at home, or a mixture, or whatever the situation is, that can be used. And that includes a student version that students can go in. Of course, they don't have support materials as the educators do, but they are able to do research without you worrying about pop-up ads and questionable content. They can favorite resources that they like to keep handy, just as you can. And it is aligned with Google Classroom, or it's integrated with Google Classroom, and also I know Clever, as well as other platforms. There's I think, we've already looked at the collection, so that's good. But just be aware that Learning Media is there. If you have any questions, like, well, how do I get there? Just let us know and we will get you there. You can go from our education page. We have links, or you can type in, and I can type it in now, but pbslearningmedia.org will get you there. I do recommend you sign up. It takes about 40 seconds approximately. And all you have to do is give your name and I believe your email. Signing up means you have the ability to favorite resources and to create folders to organize your resources and to even create lesson plans and so forth. So that's the benefit. Very user-friendly. Okay, we can move on. So we have in Learning Media, one of our social emotional learning resources, brand new, hot off the presses, as they used to say. I was a journalism double major. Is the SEL, the Arts for Every Classroom. And we really like this resource. It's an exceptional collection of things. And you can see on the left side of the page, it's broken into 2 sections. So the top section is the mental health and SEL. And if you want to click that, there you go. So there are some great resources here. What you will see, and the way that the resources are arranged, you can quickly see how many individual resources are in this sub collection. You can see that the ones we see on the screen, they're all video. You can see the time that they, the duration. You can see the source, which is KET, and the little icon in the lower right-hand side of each, there's a SM there, that's support materials. So that means, and if you just want to click on one, feel free there, Larry, we can show them. Support materials to the right of the video. We are seeing all of them there. Some will have discussion questions, some will have vocabulary or glossary. There might be one support material, like a background reading for the teacher. There might be 3 or 5 or 6, 7. It depends on the resource. If KET created it, it almost always will have a support material for you. Just to quickly point out too, you can see under the title, what is SEL? The big title at the top, there's the little title, that's the collection name. And if you see that and it's blue, you can click and go back to the big collection. So you may have done a search, what is SEL? And it took you straight to this, but you're like, I wonder what else is in there. You can click and it'll take you straight to the collection. Now, the other section of this collection is the SEL activities. And don't quote me on this, but I am almost positive that there are plans to add to the 3 that are present. I know that we have gone out and talked to educators in many different fields, such as art and music and so forth, artists, we've talked to artists. And these activities are really creative exercises, and they help to develop what's called the core competencies, the SEL competencies. And those are listed. We'll talk more about those, but self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. And so these are activities that you can do. And Larry, if you would click on mental health again and SEL.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, that's
Back
okay.
there.
No problem.
There we go.
You will see, like scroll down a little bit, the different topics here. We actually will show you a collection soon that has a video resource for each of those 5 competencies. So we'll get to that shortly. But this is a brand new resource, so please use it, share it, tell others. You can see too under mental health and SEL, the title, there's a heart. If you click it and it will turn blue, and that means it's now going to be in your favorites. And one quick tip, last tip for learning media, when in doubt, go to your dashboard. Larry's name is in the upper right because he is signed in, and that is his dashboard. So you can see if he wanted, he could go to his favorites. He can look at the different lessons that he maybe has created and make folders. And I make tons of folders. There's no limit. So I can, if I want, as your consultant, I can send you an individual video resource. I can send you a lesson plan resource that's in here. I can send you a folder that I make. So that's what I have 2 folders created that you'll be getting. So it very user-friendly and very intuitive learning media.
And another quick tip there, since we're talking about folders, and I'm sure that you probably do this, Lynn, as well, but almost anytime I start a unit of study of any kind, one of the first things I do is go through and favorite resources that I think might work, and then I go in and create a folder for it. And that gives me kind of a starting place that I can go from having that folder there. Then I can share that with students or whatever. So it's very handy.
I love that. Yes. And if you send a resource or you send a whole folder of resources to someone, let's say you want to send the principal some things for her to look at, even if the principal doesn't have an account, she can still open the folder and look at the resources. So you can send things to parents or, whomever you wish. So that's our newest SEL related resource. We can move on if you want, Larry. Thank you.
Okay.
So now we aren't going to show you a lot of videos in their entirety, but I believe that this is one that we do want to show you because it just does such a darn good job of explaining what SEL is without us having to try to repeat it. And so here you go, have a look. I think it was a good start on what is SEL.
Right.
One of the things that we wanted to point out in the video, because it does such a nice job of it, and you might, let's see, Larry, go to the next slide. I'm not sure if the next one does what I'm thinking it does, I hope. Well, that's one thing. The video does a nice job of showing the impact that, based on a lot of studies, that the SEL programs can do, which I think is amazing. So short term, obviously, students can experience positive effects for themselves, for the way they treat and experience relationships with others. But did you hear the long-term outcome? I'm not sure if you could catch up to 18 years benefit, like 18 years later, it is suggested that a consistent program, SEL program, can have with students, not just on their academic success, which we all want, but also their behaviors, their attitudes, and so important, their mental health. Maybe the next slide will also mention something else that they talk about that we wanted to highlight for you. Yes, this is it. So in sum, and I'm really glad now that I thought this would be redundant, but now that we couldn't hear everything, it's not. So it's the process of developing and using the SEL skills, social emotional skills, to cope with feelings, to set goals, make decisions, good decisions, we should say, and get along with and feel empathy for other people. Now, 3 things that we do know that SEL programs work best when the lessons are taught across the curriculum, and thankfully, as part of everyday routines, rather than being a whole separate program unto itself, right? And school-wide is key. The lessons should be explicit, and the teachers, the administrators and teachers as well can model and give examples, which I think some of our other things will touch on. Very important that administrators provide support year-long for the school year support in terms of PD and so forth.
And Lynn,
Yes,
something
please.
I wanted to make sure that we pointed out again, we really wanted to be able to show you that whole video. And one of my favorite parts of the video we didn't get to because of our bandwidth issue or whatever it is. And that is, there is a teacher who talks about how you can't teach students these skills without them being reflected in yourself, and that you kind of learn them along with the students sometimes. And he talks about how here he may have been just talking to students about being respectful, and then he gets angry about something as a teacher because of misbehavior, and then maybe he shouts at them or speaks loudly, and then he has to say, wait a minute, I was just teaching you all about respect, and I don't think that was very respectful to talk to you that way. So I need to apologize to you about that. Now, we know there are times when we have to be stern and things like that as teachers. I'm not saying we don't discipline, but he was saying you can't be disrespectful and then try and show respect to other people or teach them about respect when you're not mirroring that respect yourself. So I just thought it was the way he says it is much more powerful than the way I just did, but I think it's a good part of the video.
Well, I love that too, because he seems like he has a sense of humor, and he just has a lovely way of actually speaking that I really enjoy. I can see that students would respond well to him, but think about how powerful that is. And as a parent, my daughter is 15. but I have seen this sort of writ small with her. When you have an authority figure, especially the younger kids, and that person is able and willing to say, you know what, I'm sorry, I've made a mistake. I was not treating you fairly. So really two things. One, it shows that to that child, oh, I'm really being respected, wow. And they of course maybe can't articulate what's happening, but they feel the power of that. And then the other thing is that is an excellent model for what we would like our young people to do themselves. So, we all mess up, but being able to not just say, yeah, I'm sorry, but I apologize for doing this thing. I made a mistake. That is an excellent model and example as well.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you. I'm so sorry, you all, that it's a wonderful video. And I don't know if this is easy for you to do or not, Larry, but if you wanted to take that link and put it in the chat so people can get it
Yes.
easily. Of course, it's in the folder that I created, but there's a lot of stuff. So if you're like, oh, that might be something we can do if it's easy for you to do, Larry. If it's not,
Okay. Yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
It might take a minute.
That's okay. No pressure, right?
Yeah, right.
It's like trying to spell correctly when you're standing up in front of a bunch of people, right, and do it quickly. I can't ever do that well. This resource is very, very helpful. And one thing that I wanted, the connection that I need to make for you is linking the idea of SEL or social emotional learning with trauma. And the link is, it's very, it may be obvious in a way, but it wasn't for me. And so when I was reading about it, I thought, well, of course. So, we're going to have students, like all of us, who experience different kinds of trauma in their lives. And we are going to actually talk about what constitutes trauma. Of course, what an experience that you have that does not really affect you much might, to me, be traumatic. That is true. But trauma can prevent us, especially when we're young, from being able to process our emotions, to handle our emotions, to learn how to do that, to be able to do that. And when we're young, we can't really articulate what's happening. And so it's so important, that we're thinking about trauma in that way, because it goes hand in hand with developing and growing social emotional skills. You can't really do one without the other. So the image that you see, the illustration of the boy with the huge backpack, will be mentioned here. We're just going to show you, we hope that the sound will work well, a little piece of this resource. This is from, you can see the collection Youth Mental Health, which is awesome. And specifically from the piece You Are Not Alone. So it was, I think it's a 6-part documentary that we did, if I'm not mistaken. This is a segment of that. And it's a youth mental health series that KET did. Okay, and this explains the trauma-informed school.
Hey, how are you? Every day, that's what parents see as children run into school is your backpack. Did you bring your backpack? And a lot of times that visible piece of the backpack represents the academic piece. It represents what we bring to school and what we need to be ready to do our jobs as students. And what we don't realize is students bring invisible backpacks to school that we cannot see, but that carry all of the stripes of their environment from home and from the community and from things they can't control that we may never see. What we might see is the inability to focus. We might see tears. We might see undesired behaviors. We might see lack of attention, which all looks like those are choices that children present to us. And sometimes we want to apply consequences to those behaviors. But what we have found is every single behavior and every single reaction is really a cry for help, and we have to dig deeper. So sometimes it has to be us that not only helps unpack the physical backpack to get the permission slips, to get the homework, but to also unpack some of that, the backpack we don't see, the invisible backpack, to really figure out where these kids stand. We incorporate trauma-informed care strategies, which are benefits.
I think that's all we were going to show of that.
Yes, yes. I just find that very, very helpful. And so that's something, if you want to read more, trauma-informed schools, trauma-informed curriculum, and trauma-informed practices as well. And if you want, you could click for just a second, Larry, on the youth mental health link.
Yes. Yes. Mhm.
And to show you this as another resource. And some of the resources, as you might imagine, for topics about mental health, that include discussions of depression and anxiety, self-harming, and suicide even, are very sensitive. And so the support materials also will address these things. But if you encounter something that has very sensitive material, it will tell you in the description that you see when you click on the resource, as well as the support materials for teachers. I was trying to think. Yeah, the You Are Not Alone comes specifically from the series that we did for the youth mental health, and does discuss things like suicide and, of course, suicide prevention. It gives you personal narratives and student perspective about that. You can see over to the right, you may also there's videos, and there's other materials in addition to videos, but there are a lot of videos. What causes suicide? And then there's one, and I'm not sure if it's the social networks one, Larry, do you see using social networks? There's a really great video in there.
Well, and as Lynn was saying, you'll notice on this page, you can see right at the bottom of the description, it says sensitive, and it tells you the resource contains material that may be sensitive for some students, and that teachers should exercise discretion. So it will have that warning about anything like that's sensitive material. As we know, some things can be kind of triggering events for students that may have a history of like PTSD or things like that. So that can be it's very helpful to have that warning, I think.
And then, so here, this was a sobering fact, and I wonder how often this changes, but 1 out of every 4 kids attending school has been exposed to traumatic event that can, probably does, affect learning and or behavior. And there's a child trauma toolkit for educators. And actually, you know what, let me make a note. I'll add that into your resources after we end for today. Child trauma, so that you can get to their website. But trauma can be something that happens once and continues to linger in many ways in a child's life, or it can be an ongoing issue. And of course, many things are covered under trauma. So isolation of any kind, including from what we've all experienced, which is COVID-related change, which brings about isolation, or even a feeling of isolation, even if you're not physically isolated. Dealing with poverty, of course, racism and domestic abuse, either directly or seeing it committed, bullying, community violence, all of these things and so many more would be things that would be in a child's, of course, backpack, just like it's in all of ours as adults too. Okay, so and I'm not sure, Larry, this may be the one that I was going to explain, and then maybe you take over a little, but I'm not sure. This is something I put together because I wanted to have lots of resources easily accessed and connected to CASEL. And I think I hope everybody saw, I did put in the chat that CASEL, sort of the word on SEL, stands for Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning. And they've been around 20 years or more. Back when SEL was something, just an idea to be explored. And now, there's more and more research all the time that suggests the importance of it and the effectiveness of it. So you can see that I've tried to use color coding. So under the CASEL competency, and I think one of the lady in the video, she was calling it something else, but competency is a common word used. But under self-management, for example, there is a link to the self-management in SEL video that would be useful for teachers to see for training. And then there's for kids themselves, for students, attention, breath, and body. That's for younger students. Because I've done this presentation in different forms, sometimes covering all grade ranges, including early childhood. And then, but luckily we have early childhood folks at KET who did a wonderful job presenting on this topic for early childhood recently. By the way, I have included in your resource folder, their folder that they gave out. So you'll have that as well. But I've added in resources for grades around 6, a little bit younger in some cases, but around ages 6 through 12. And I've marked those with the asterisks so that you will see that. So it's either appropriate for students in those older grades or for, of course, for their teachers who are training and learning about SEL. So I didn't mean for us to go into all of these. And if we had time, by the way, I just want to say, under relationship management, some of you may have heard of the love languages. Take the school counselor's quiz to understand how you connect with others. If we had time, we would have done the whole love language thing, and it's something I bet that students would love to do. So you might check that out when you get a chance. But I just wanted you to know what that is, and that is in your resource page that you'll be getting.
Okay. Well, thank you, Lynn, for
Sure.
doing such a heavy lift. Kind of bringing us all up to speed on a little bit about what SEL actually is and about some of these wonderful resources that are available, especially that new collection that KET has created about it. And as we continue, I want to talk about and show you some more really wonderful resources. I'm hoping that our video continues to work because I wanted to make sure I showed you this particular video, which really talks about how you integrate SEL within academic instruction. This is more of a PD. This video is more of a PD type of video, in that it is for the teacher and not for the student. And it does a wonderful job of talking about not only the possibility of integrating, which it's very easy to integrate, I think, across the curriculum, but also the necessity of integrating it. This should not be something that stands in isolation. This should be something that you're doing just as you're teaching, because it's going to improve so many things about classroom. Your classroom environment is the word I was looking for there. So we're going to look at a little bit of this. This is from a collection called Social and Emotional Learning, which is also from PBS Learning Media. And this one, as you can see, is on academic instruction. So let's watch a little bit of this one. But again, this is another one that is a really good one. And there it goes. Okay, sorry about that, folks. We're back in action. Okay, so
Thank you, Larry.
so continuing to talk, especially since we didn't get to see all the video, I wanted to make sure that we just emphasize this idea of SEL across the curriculum. And we don't have a breakdown for every major subject area here, but we did want to show that here we've got a link to two different, one is a study, the SEL and science class. And I love this quote from the study that says, to ask students to leave their emotions and social connections at the door and engage only rational thinking in the science classroom is not a reasonable expectation, nor should it be encouraged. As science educators, we need to address emotions because, like it or not, emotions influence learning outcomes in the science education classroom. And so the link that we see here, and I'm not going to go to it right now, it goes to kind of a study that talks about science and SEL in the science classroom. Now, in the math classroom, right across the way here, I am going to click on that one to show you that that one is actually a really nice listing of how different ways that you can incorporate SEL throughout the math classroom, and it's a much more kind of a workaday text that teachers can use and give them a lot of different ideas. And then in the middle here, this is actually not from a KET resource, but it's a good resource. And this is from Pathways to Success. Some of you might be familiar with this website, but it's 25 ways to integrate social emotional learning. And these are tips that can be used really in pretty much any subject area. So they're everything from greetings, and there are different types of check-ins that you can do, like here, this managing my emotions wheel, just all different kinds of things here. Practice problem-solving skills, and we'll talk more about that in just a minute because this kind of ties into something else that we'll talk about when it comes to SEL. But this is an activity that you can do in any subject when you talk about solving problems. And so this is a really nice little website that gives lots of different, very kind of how to incorporate SEL across the curriculum. So that's just a little bit more about how this can be integrated. And I just mentioned that we could use that idea of problem solving in a lot of different ways. In this video, and I'm going to try and show a little bit of it. Luckily, we're not going to be showing the whole video, so maybe it will hold out for just a minute or so that we're going to be showing. It talks about the idea of SEL as looking at the whole idea of SEL as a problem-based or project-based learning opportunity, I guess I'll say there.
It's important to build relationship skills with your children because it does foster trust. When kids feel that
was the only part I wanted to show of that was really her just reframing that idea of SEL as something that you can easily work into a problem-based situation and thinking about how students have to work together in that situation. So it really takes project-based learning and expands it even further. And now we're just kind of getting into some really good resources here, some different collections that are very helpful. This one is the Kindness, Empathy, and Resilience collection, and this is another one that is within PBS Learning Media. And Lynn, I didn't know if you wanted to say anything in particular about this one. As far as I know one of the things that's my favorite in it, but I wondered if you had a favorite in this one.
So and we should say these are the suggested grades for these are 6 through 12, and they are suggestions. And you know, teachers, educators, they know their students and their groups and what is most appropriate for each of those. But if you wouldn't care to scroll, I do like the young peace leaders.
Mm-hmm.
Those were some things I wish that I had remember thinking, I wish we had time to look at some of that, like cultivating gratitude, and the one above, the cultivating self-acceptance, which is something that I think can be so useful to
Mhm.
most people, not just students.
Mhm.
The young peace leaders pieces, and then if you would care to go down. Also, did you see, let's see here.
I'm going
Oh,
back.
that's in the Transformative Teachers collection. Did you see that? So, you know, it's sort of a rabbit hole kind of thing, but in a good way. If you you find a resource you like, and then there's another collection that you can click on,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? So there's a curriculum here that you can use. And let's see, fostering resilience and ethical leadership skills, which of course we all want to do if we can do that. And there's a support material over there for
Get back
teachers.
to we are supposed to be there. Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. Just some teaching tips. I love when there's teaching tips offered, but also be aware that many of the pieces may have not only discussion questions, but maybe handouts, sort of guided journal prompts, so to speak, for students to do too. So, yeah, I'm sorry, Larry, go ahead.
No, that's fine. And something that I wanted to kind of point out about this collection, it's a little different from some of the other collections. Some of the other collections that we've created, such as the new SEL collection that KET has created, all of those have been kind of created together, and they're kind of a piece. And so they're all maybe from the same series or from related series. This collection was created by PBS Learning Media, and it's actually gathering from all different kinds of resources. So there are things even in here from PBS NewsHour.
Oh, yes.
There are things from another series
Braincraft.
called Braincraft.
Oh, I love Braincraft. So, and science educators,
Right. There are
heads up
things
on
from StoryCorps.
that.
There's even some things from StoryCorps in here, and StoryCorps, some of you that listen to NPR might be familiar with that. And you may not know that they've created an animated collection that kind of goes along with some of those StoryCorps stories. And so anyway, so I just wanted to let you know that this collection does gather from lots of different sources, but it is a really good collection. So that's the Kindness, Empathy, and Resilience collection. And here is one that it was funny when Lynn and I were discussing this, creating this session, that we both talked about how we related to this video, which is a video from a wonderful series that's on PBS Learning Media called Above the Noise. And it's a series that really deals with just so many different aspects across society, everything from racial issues to and it's a kind of a provocative, almost video blog where they're trying to get you to think in an open-ended way about lots of different resources, or I mean about lots of different topics. And so this one, The Phenomenon for Everyone, in this Above the Noise, they talk about imposter syndrome, or as the host of the show says, it really should not be called a syndrome. It should be called a phenomenon, because to call it a syndrome makes it seem like it's a medical condition or something, which it's not. But I wanted to show you a little bit of this one. It's I think something that everybody can relate to. And I think people kind of use this term kind of offhand, this idea of imposter syndrome kind of offhand. They don't realize that it can have really serious consequences and effects. And so I do want to show a little bit of this. I'm not going to start it at the beginning, though. Let's go.
Well, and I'll say one thing too while you're scrolling through that. I used to teach college English, and including argumentation, right? You know, argumentative writing, where you had to have evidence and build a claim, so it became more than an opinion. And so you could, you know, talking about integration. So English instructors could use this with middle school and high school students and integrate the SEL portion. But it's also a great collection, like Larry was saying, because it covers so many issues that students would be interested in. And some of them are like, you know, should schools have dress codes? And so then there'll be the video on it, but then there'll be the support materials for teachers as well as students. And you can see that the one that Larry has here on imposter syndrome has materials for the students too.
Okay, so we're going to start kind of late in this, but this is, I think he really makes some good points in here at this spot. So, and you can see that Miles, who's the host of this show, uses a lot of humor and doesn't take himself too seriously, but is just a wonderful conversationalist and wonderful at bringing students in and having them get buy-in. So this is just a really great series that you ought to check out. The whole.
Larry, do you have a minute to click on the support materials for students, just so
Yeah.
they can see that?
Well,
'Cause I thought those were really, there's a viewing guide, which I always liked when I was teaching to give, to help guide students as they're watching to be more active. And you can print these out, or you can, if you wanted to add to them or change them in some way, you could do that too.
and then there's even some things for diverse learners there. So,
Yes, I like that as well.
but as you were saying, the educator guide really is also very good for this series as well.
Yes, I would call that very robust. Very good.
It is robust. Okay. So anyway, that is above the noise, and definitely it has. It would explore that whole collection because it has a lot of things that deal with SEL in it. Not everything does, but a lot of it does. Okay. And then this is a really great series called Understanding LGBTQ plus Identity. And as you can see, this is a toolkit for educators, but it has lots of good videos that go with it. And this particular one, I'll go back to the whole collection in a minute, but I want to show just a little bit of this one on teachers and families, how to support transitioning students. So if you have a student who is transgender and who is transitioning, then this is this video has a lot of good information in it. And this, I'll set up the scenario. This is a student whose mother is actually an educator, and the student decided to transition. And so even though this educator had experienced this as a teacher, having students who had gone through this, she had not experienced it with her own child. And so and of course, especially with LGBTQ plus, the idea of safety is with that population and community, safety is a very important issue because we know there's still a lot of discrimination that goes on, including what could be violent discrimination. And so this has some really good, like I say, videos that deal with a lot of different issues around that. And I think this is the last big collection we're going to be talking about before we wrap up. And this is a collection called Not Broken. And one of the things that Not Broken has that we really wanted to point out is not only does it have really great videos, and first of all, you can just read here that this is a documentary that's broken up into several different parts about 7 young people who have different kinds of mental illnesses. And they come from all different walks of life. Some are youth of color. You can read that as well as I can, but some survive sexual abuse, all different kinds of things. But the teacher's guide, which we've got a link right here, is really great. And I know, Lynn, I think you put this link, didn't you, in the support materials, the support sheet?
I didn't, but I can do that.
Okay, sorry, didn't mean to put you on.
Yes. Oh, wait, we put it in the presentation, but I did not put it in the resource sheet, but I will do that right now.
Yeah. So the teacher's guide is very robust that goes with this and has, support materials, discussion guides, all different kinds of information. So again, this is a great resource to be able to use here. It has links to all different kinds of things in it. And I did want to show just a little bit of one of the videos here that I really like. And so this is really showing lots of different people's journeys. And this one on Angels Awakening, Not Broken. And this talks about this young woman is an author of science fiction, young adult science fiction, but she used that to kind of be able to heal herself because she is bipolar has lots of different issues going on. And we're going to start again, not at the beginning of this one by any means. And so I love this video because she really talks about, how as she's grown, she's learned to deal with her bipolar disorder or syndrome, and how she has been able to, figure out, yes, I can travel the world, but when I travel the world, I better have my ducks in a row. I better know exactly what I need to keep me safe. And interestingly, that list that she just gave, a lot of those things are things that probably every traveler should be thinking about. And sadly, a lot do not until it's too late and they get in a situation where they're in trouble. But by preparing ahead of time, she's able to deal with a lot of different things. And of course, she says she is taking medication and she's dealing with all these things. So this series is a really great series because you get to witness young people who are looking at all different kinds of obstacles that they're overcoming. And again, with a really great support set of support materials that go with it. So the Not Broken collection is a really good one.
And Larry, can you click on the link I just put in the chat and make sure that takes us to the teacher's guide? Because I did want to check it, but also I think it's good to look at it for a second.
Yes.
Okay. And I did add these to the resource list. But if you'll notice, go back up to the beginning, the first page. Yeah. It talks about, which I would find very helpful as an educator, about what to do and what not to do, really. I mean, how sensitive, of course, these topics can be. And then it encourages, if you scroll down just a little bit, possible pitfalls to avoid. Somewhere in here, though, it also talks about how, as an educator, it's also good to maybe make connections with your school counselor, and even work in conjunction with them with some of the topics, depending on which ones that you explore and how. But it's pretty specific and helpful, I think. I like the tips for encouraging discussion and participation, especially the one about listening without interrupting, right? Respectfully. Criticize ideas, not individuals. And this would be the norm. It says establishing the norm for speaking and listening in the class, which I think could be very helpful, because I would imagine any students who would identify with any of these young people, they might be very uncomfortable and concerned for the kind of conversation that might happen in the classroom. And this is a great opportunity to model and instruct on how to have conversations about differences, and be respectful about it.
And I really like the one too, avoid assumptions about any member of the class or generalization about social groups, because then you're going to avoid some of the stereotypes and things like that go on.
Yes.
But this is a really good, really well thought out set of support materials, and the series is very well thought out. So I think it's a very strong resource. Okay. And that's pretty much it for us as far as what we wanted to present. And also, we just want to thank everybody for attending and for being such great participants.